मातम है आज अस्करी शाहे ज़िशान का, उरिया सर है आज इमाम ज़मान का। मातम है आज अस्करी शाहे ज़िशान का, उरिया सर है आज इमाम ज़मान का। आदा ने टुकड़े शेख का जिगर कर दिया सारा, आदा ने टुकड़े शेख का जिगर कर दिया सारा। पामाल हुआ बाग रसूले अनाम का, मातम है आज अस्करी शाहे ज़िशान का। जब जहर का सदमे से तड़पने लगे सरवर, जब जहर के सदमे से तड़पने लगे सरवर, नजरों में था वो वाक़या तस्वीर हसन का। मातम है आज अस्करी शाहे ज़िशान का। जब शरबते संभल के नाजुक में पहुँचा, जब शरबते जहर हल्क के नाजुक में पहुँचा, थर्रा गया मज़ार कासी में जिनान का। मातम है आज अस्कर शाहे ज़िशान का। बर मोहम्मद व आलि मोहम्मद सल्लल्लाहु। रहमल्लाहु मन क़रा अल-फ़ातिहा। औज़ु बिल्लाहि मिनश शैतानिर रजीम। बिस्मिल्लाहिर रहमानिर रहीम। बिस्मिल्लाहि व बिल्लाहि व सल्लल्लाहु अला मुहम्मदिन व आलिहि व उफ़व्विज़ु अम्री इलल्लाह। इन्ना अल्लाह बसीरुम बिल इबाद। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाहिल्लज़ी हदाना लिहाज़ा वमा कुन्ना लिनहतदिय लौला अन हदाना अल्लाह। लक़द जाअत रुसुलु रब्बिना बिल हक़्क़ वस्सलातु वस्सलामु अला अशरफिल अंबिया'i वल मुरसलीन अबिल क़ासिम मुहम्मद। रूही व जिस्मी व अरवाहुल आलमीन लकल फ़िदाक या इब्न रसूलिल्लाह। सुम्मा अस्सलामु अलैकुम या अहलल अज़ाइल हुसैन जमीअन व रहमतुल्लाहि व बरकातुहु। अस्सलामु अलल हुसैन व अला अली इब्न अल हुसैन व अला औलादिल الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين، خصوصا سيدي ومولاي يا أبا الفضل العباس بن أمير المؤمنين، وقاسم بن الحسن، ومسلم بن عقيل، وهاني بن عروة، وحبيب بن مظاهر، والحر الشهيد الرياحي، السلام عليكم يا ساداتي ووالي جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته. عليكم السلام ورحمة الله. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل لا أسألكم عليه أجرا إلا المودة في القربى. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات. This is a famous ayah from the Holy Quran in which we are being asked by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala through the Holy Prophet that I do not seek any reward from you for all the work that the Holy Prophet had done. He said, I do not seek any reward from you except that you love my qurba, those who are related to me, my Ahlul Bayt. And it is for this reason that we have gathered here tonight. This is the last of the nights of Adai Hussein alayhimus salam. Tomorrow the whole situation will change. It will change from Adha to the time of rejoicing. And it happens to be that it ends with the wafat of our Imam, 11th Imam, Imam Hassan Al-Askari alayhi salam. So tomorrow basically becomes the first day of Imamat of our 12th Imam, Imam Sahibul Asri wa Zaman alayhi salam. Our 11th Imam, when we look at his life, there are many lessons that we can learn from his life. He was taken by under the leadership of the Abbasid regimes when they took the 10th Imam from Medina and brought him to Kufa. When they brought him to Kufa, they also, Imam alayhi salam also brought the 11th Imam alayhi salam with him. The 10th Imam brings the 11th Imam with him. And one can just think that from the time when he was 6 years of age until the time of when he was 28, he was always either under house arrest or he was in a prison. This entire time of his was spent like that. And he died at a very young age of 28. His mother was known as Hudaysa Sosan or Salil, and she was from southern Egypt. Imam alayhi salam had 3 other brothers and a sister. One's name was Sayyid Muhammad. The other was Hussein, and the third one was Ja'far. And his sister's name was Aliyah. Now when it came to Sayyid Muhammad, who was the eldest amongst all, he was an extremely pious person. a very pious person, and he used to go to the city of Balad. When we go to Samarra for ziyarat, one of the cities that we visit is the city of Balad. Some people visit, some don't. After the regime of Saddam Hussein, the city of Balad was among the most dangerous city for a Shia to be in, because the entire area was lived by those who were non-Shias. So it was a very, very difficult place to go. But then in the last 10 so years, that city is opened up. And so many people actually go to Samarra, and they'll go to the city of Balad either before or after Samarra. In city of Balad, where Sayyid Muhammad, the brother of 11th Imam, used to go, he used to go to collect the rents, because there were some properties there which were owned by the 10th Imam. So the Sayyid Muhammad, his son, and the brother of our 11th Imam, used to go to the city of Balad to collect the rent. Except when he was the age of 23, he passed away in the city of Balad. Now, history does not talk about what really happened to him, whether he was killed or whether he died a natural death. Nobody knows. Actually, history doesn't talk about that. But one thing the history talks about is his loyalty to Imam alayhi salam and to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He was an extremely loyal person. On the other hand, the brother of our 11th Imam, whose name was Ja'far, he was an open liar to the people. Now it may surprise us, but it happens to many, many families. It happens to the Imams. It can happen to us. That you may have one brother who is very, very honest and very dedicated. On the other hand, you may have a brother who is an open liar and just lies all the time. So Ja'far was known as an open liar. Now just think of it, as I had talked about of Hazrat Musa in his time, and how Fir'aun had ordered that every child should die because he was being threatened by a birth of a child, when he was told that your regime will be overthrown by a child that will be born. Now similarly, when it comes to the 11th Imam, it was always in fear that Imam alayhi salam was living, and he had to make sure that his son, the 12th Imam, was not exposed to the government, because the government was looking for him. They were waiting for Imam Zaman, Sahibul Asr wa Zaman, to be born. They were waiting for him. But of course, this was also the way Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, just like He protected Hazrat Musa, He also protected the 5th Imam as well, right under their regime. They could not even tell by looking at Imam's mother whether she was pregnant or not. And there were no signs that were visible. But in spite of that, the Imam of our time, the 12th Imam, was born in that condition. And they had made sure that they had put Imam from either house arrests or prisons. The problem was that Imam was always so close to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that every time they tried to put him in a prison and they brought guards, there was a governor of that time called Salil bin Yasid. He was one of the governors of the time. He had 2 guards that were extremely dangerous and fierce, and people used to be scared of these guards. So he decided that I will put these 2 guards as the guards that will guard the prison of our 11th Imam. So 11th Imam was in the prison, and after some time, people went to the governor, Salil, and he said, "What is wrong with you? You seem to be so calm these days." He said, "Why?" He said, "Because you brought these two fierce soldiers, your guards, guarding the Imam, but in spite of them guarding them, now it looks like they have pity on him." Suddenly their hearts had changed for the better. And when they told the governor said, "Why don't you go and ask these two guards what is happening?" So they went to the two guards, and the two guards said, "What can we do to a person that whenever we went into the prison to beat him up, he was fasting? He used to fast in daytime, and at night time he was just praying, and all the time in his mouth all we could hear is the name of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala." This action of Imam alayhi salam changed those two guards forever. They became the lovers of Ahlul Bayt alayhi salam. So this is how Imam was, that he had the best of characteristics. He was a very sharing and caring type of a person. There was another person who had said that he used to stand outside the prison, and one day a friend of our 11th Imam brought some pomegranates, and he gave it to this guard and said, "Give it to the Imam. Give it to the person who is in the jail." So this guard goes to Imam and he gives him these 5 pomegranates and said, "This is from your friend. The days are very hot. This is a good time to have pomegranates, so therefore why don't you eat this?" So Imam alayhi salam took the 5 pomegranates and kept it on his side. But then he looked at the guard and he said, "Are you not hungry? Why don't you take one of the pomegranates?" So Imam takes one of the pomegranates and gives it to him and said, "Why don't you eat this? It is a hot day outside. Why don't you eat some pomegranate?" And he looked at those pomegranates, one pomegranate, and then he put them in his pocket. And Imam alayhi salam said, "Why are you putting it in your pocket?" He said, "Because my family don't have any food. We don't have any food at home. So I thought that I'll take this pomegranate to my children." And Imam alayhi salam took all of those pomegranates and gave it to this guard and said, "Take all of them to your children." For 2 years, Imam alayhi salam was given nothing but bread and water. For 2 solid years, nothing he was given. So we should always be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because this is one of the lessons that we learn from this Imam, that how he was being treated from the age of 6 till the age of 28 when he died, that his entire time was inside a prison, and then when he was inside the prison or under house arrest, very little food was provided to him. But in spite of that, he was always thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and always thanked Allah for whatever amount of food that was given to him. And that is why we are told, right, that try to be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When you imagine all the stuff that we have in life, we should be thankful every minute and every time to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when we are given something. Many a times we will complain for this or that or this or that, but instead look at the things that are positive in our life, and it is more positiveness than negativeness. There is more things that we have, and many of the things we don't even need, but they are still there with us in our homes. So we should always be thankful to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Among one of the things that happened to Imam alayhi salam, there was a person, Ali bin Yarmash was his name. They tried everything. They tried to injure the Imam in many times. At one time, they even had an untamed horse, and the Khalifa wanted to sit on this horse, and he could not sit on that horse. So he said, why don't you bring the 11th Imam and put him on this horse? It's untamed, it will jump around and it will hurt him. And if he's truly coming from the lineage of the Holy Prophet, then nothing will happen to him. And so Imam alayhi salam comes. And when they called him, Imam alayhi salam gets on the horse. And of course the horse was tamed within minutes of the time that he sat on that horse. And people were amazed. And at one time, in his 6 to 28 years of age, there was 1 year where he was let go, sort of, because there was a Christian monk and there was a drought in Samarra. Now remember, there were two cities in Iraq, Kufa and Samarra. These two cities were known as the city of army. This is where an army garrison was. Just in the United States also, we have certain cities where there are armed forces being stationed there. So when it came to Kufa, it was Umar ibn Sa'ad's father, Waqas ibn Abi Sa'ad, who was brought to Kufa, and this is where he established the first army in Iraq. And then they established a second army in the city of Samarra, which was known as Surraman Rai. It basically means a city that pleases the eyes. Why? Because there was Tigris River there. And actually, when we go for ziyarah, we don't see that side of the city, because again, it is populated by those who are against the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. So when we go to Samarra, we only go to the haram of Imam alayhi salam, because that is the most important thing for us to do. But really, Samarra was known to be a very beautiful city. So Mu'tasim Billah, who was the Abbasid Khalifa, he had moved his regime to Samarra. And so this is where the city of Samarra was. And it was in this city that Imam alayhi salam was being treated the way he was being treated. And so what happened was, there was this one guard, Yarmash, who was a fierce guard, and he used to have animals. And his animals were not normal animals that he had in the backyard. He used to have a cage. And in this cage was all kinds of lions and tigers, and there were about 4 animals that were in this cage. So he tells Mu'tasim, he said, I will take him to my house because we cannot get rid of him. We tried. When we put him in prison, people fall in love with him. When we take him out, people follow him. So we cannot get rid of him. The only way to get rid of him is to put him under the surrounding of these wild animals. So he takes him, Imam alayhi salam, and puts him inside the cage. His wife approaches him and he says, who is this person? And he says, I don't know, his name is Hassan al-Askari. And he said, does he come from the lineage of the Holy Prophet? And her husband said, yes, he does. He said, well, you better treat him well, because these people are people of knowledge. Don't play around with these people. Of course, he didn't listen to his wife, and he put Imam alayhi salam inside that cage, and then he left, and he came inside the house, and he's sitting there with his wife, and then suddenly they decide, the husband decides, let me go and see what is happening to him. So he goes out, and his wife tells him, he says, when you see his bones, make sure you bury those bones. And he said, yes, that's what I will do. When he goes outside the cage, he goes near the cage, and what does he see? He sees that Imam alayhi salam is in sajda, and all 4 animals are sitting next to him. So imagine, this was the Imam, but in spite of them knowing, and they were looking at all these aspects of it, they were not ready to accept him as the Imam. And this is why when it comes to the signs that Imam alayhi salam had given, because it was such an area that was so dangerous for the Shias, that he gave 5 signs to the Shias so that they can live and recognize each other. The first sign Imam alayhi salam gave of a real Shia, a believer, a follower of Ahlul Bayt, is that that person does sajda on a dust, on the earth. The Holy Prophet, if you look at his life, and this is not only found in the Shia books, it is found even in the books of our Sunni brothers, that the Holy Prophet used to do sajda on the ground, on the barren ground, on the dust actually. And carpets were non-existent even at that time of our Holy Prophet. There were no carpets in Medina, in the city of Medina. So the Holy Prophet used to do sajda on the dust. So Imam alayhi salam says that one of the signs is to do sajda on the dust, preferably if it is the dust of Karbala. That is the preferred way. However, Imam said the sign is to do your sajda on the dust. So this was one of the signs that was given to the Shias. The second thing he said that a Shia will perform 51 rakat namaz a day. And frankly, we barely can do the 17, you can imagine. I mean, if somebody came and told you every day that you should be doing 51 rakat, is wajib on you. This is also the grace of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He has not made wajib on us. But 51 rakat namaz is a sign when a person performs that. The third sign was the sign of a ring, akik or firoza or any of these rings that a person wears. That is one of the reasons why we wear these kind of rings, is to show who we are. And I will tell you that even in my own life, I was in Washington, D.C. during the time of Bush, and the Shia Muslim community was asked to come there for breaking of the fast. So I go into the elevator, and inside the elevator was one of the representatives of Condoleezza Rice. As we were in the elevator, he looked at my hand and he saw the ring. And he asks me, "Are you a Shia?" And I said, "Yes." I said, "How did you know that I was a Shia?" He said, "I can tell you from the ring that you have." Imagine, even in this age, day and age, there are people who know that the ones who wear certain rings of firoza or akika and akik. And why do we wear this? Because it is said that these rings helps us from any calamity that may hit us, or any bala that may come to us. This ring will protect you from that bala. This is what Imam alayhi salam had instructed his followers to wear. So this was one of the signs. The other sign was to say Bismillah in your prayers a little bit loudly. Now, not that loud that the whole Jamaat knows that you are now praying. It was just enough for you to say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Because sometimes you'll find people will say it so loudly that everybody's attention will go towards that person who's saying Bismillah. Now that is not what Imam is saying. Imam is saying the sign is that not only in Salat, but in every action that you do, you say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim a little bit louder. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, something like that. So this is also a sign that Imam alayhi salam said. And the fifth sign is the ziyarat of Arba'in. Imagine Imam recommends them a ziyarat that identifies them as Shias of theirs. So Imam alayhi salam recommended these 5 things that would make the Shias recognize another Shia. And this was at the time when it was very, very difficult time during his time. So we commemorate the Shahadat of our 11th Imam, Imam Hassan al-Askari alayhi salam. Now we know that Azaa is ending. We love our Ahlul Bayt, and that love should always be shown in actions, my brothers. When you come here and you are part of it, it's one thing for me to sit at home and Zoom it because it's convenient, and find if situations are such that you can sit at home, you have to sit at home is one thing. But it is also important to show Ahlul Bayt that we love you, right? When we have our own homes today, and why do we visit each other? We can just call them and just finish it that way and say it is all okay. We don't have to go and visit them. Call Muhammad Bhai or call Sharali Bhai and just say Salaam Alaikum. We don't have to visit them. We don't have to interact with them. We can just do that over the phone. But we don't do that. We do that because we want our relationship to be stronger and stronger with the people that we are with. That is why we visit them, we visit their homes. Similarly, when it comes to an environment that we are in today, a person who makes that effort to come out of that house and go towards the house of God is really gives pleasure to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Therefore, it is important. And if we don't do it, our children will not do it. And tomorrow when your children don't do it, then don't sit and cry for that, because they have learned exactly what you have taught them. So that is why it's important that we come to such occasions and to commemorate the Shahadat of our Imam. An Imam who died at the age of 28, he was poisoned. He was poisoned, in such a poison was given to him that it is said that when it was going through his body, all of his parts of body were being destroyed and were being cut into pieces inside. And for 3 days, Imam alayhi salam, it is said that he just walked back and forth in his house. And on the 2nd day, then he would sit down on the chair or on the floor. And on the 3rd day, he said, now lay me down on the ground. I can no longer sit. But this was an Imam alayhi salam who was there, and when it came to his ghusl, his 5-year-old son, the Imam of our time, arrived there. And it was an Imam who gives ghusl to an Imam. So Imam alayhi salam, our 12th Imam, we give our condolences to our Imam. We give our condolences to Janab Fatima Zahra Salamullah alayhi, and we ask Allah, Ya Allah, give us another opportunity of commemorating Muharram and Safar next year. But if it is written for us that it will not happen, then Ya Allah, give us the shifa. Allahumma arzuqna shafa'at al-Hussein yawm al-Wurud. Give us a shifa of also Janab Fatima Zahra Salamullah alayhi. But here was the 5-year-old son of Imam. Ja'far, the brother of Imam, had actually stood to lead the prayers. And our 12th Imam came and pushed Ja'far aside and said, I will be the one to lead the prayers of my father. What can I say about this Imam? At the age of 28, it is said that the second day of his poisoning, he was sitting and doing his prayers. He could not stand up in Sham. Imam Zainul Abidin comes over to Janab Zainab, who was only 56 years of age. And Janab Zainab was sitting and praying namaz al-tahajjud. Imam says to Janab Zainab, why are you sitting and praying today? Janab Zainab said that I have been so thirsty that whatever food I had, I used to give them out to the children because not enough food was available. Imagine a 56-year-old lady sitting and doing namaz tahajjud. Imagine a 28-year-old young man doing his wajib prayers while sitting. I have to say to my 12th Imam, Ya Imam, at the age of 5 years, and you became an orphan, but nobody had beaten you up in any way. But there was Sakina, 4 years of age, that when she comes out of the tent, she says, Shimr Mal'oon, pull the 2 earrings from her ears. She started bleeding and she turned over to Najaf and then she turned over to Furat. She said, oh my Uncle Abbas, I miss you today, for my earrings were taken away. ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم بحق محمد وأنت المحمود، بحق علي وأنت الأعلى، بحق فاطمة وأنت فاطر السماوات والأرض، بحق الحسن وأنت المحسن، بحق الحسين وأنت قديم الإحسان. إلهي توبة قبل الموت وراحة عند الموت ومغفرة بعد الموت والنجاة من النار ودخولا في الجنة وعافية من كل بلاء الدنيا وعذاب الآخرة.